All right, welcome. Today we are starting our BCBA exam review, where I will go through a full-length BCBA exam question by question, 10 questions at a time, and break each question down in a way that I think you should think about it when you're taking your exam. Remember, all these questions are based off the BCBA task list, and the best way to get better at the exam is to understand that task list, understand your terms, understand your definitions, understand how they're applied. So I hope you enjoy. Any questions or comments, please leave them below or email me. I'm happy to help. We'll be putting out videos every Friday for the BCBA exam. Our RBT exam materials do not change, same schedule there. I look forward to helping you all pass your BCBA exam. So let's get started with question one. Question one, a college professor, before handing out an exam, informs the class they can leave class as soon as they finish the exam. What type of contingency is he implementing? So we are looking at some sort of group contingency here, okay, because he's giving this contingency to the entire class. What is a contingency? A contingency is an if-then statement. If you do this, then you do this. It's a way for us to set up rewards or punishment based on responses, okay? So when we're looking at group contingencies, we really have three types we're looking at, okay? This is clearly not a naturalistic group contingency, D, because we're contriving this, right? So we're looking at our other three. We have an independent, a dependent, and an interdependent, okay? What do we know about an independent group contingency? One independent group contingency is based off each individual member of the group. Whenever the individual member of the group meets the criteria, they get reinforced. The dependent group contingency, the entire group is dependent or waiting on one or more members of the group to complete the task. This is often called the hero contingency, okay? Because if I have a group of 20 and I need one person to do it correctly for all 20 to receive reinforcement, we're dependent. And then interdependent is when everybody in the group must complete the task to get reinforced. In our case, whenever a single individual completes their task of the exam, they can leave. Based on what we just talked about, this would be an independent group contingency. 2, every month you meet with your client psychologist and your client's parents to review treatment updates and current progress. The psychologist expresses that your client has problems with self-control when it comes to food. She wants to implement a cognitive-based intervention to address the issue. How should you respond as the behavior analyst? All right, so we're collaborating. Remember, collaboration is key for behavior analysts. We collaborate with other people of the disciplinary team. The psychologist says your client has problems with self-control, which is a misnomer, right? Because ultimately control is within the environment. She also wants to implement this cognitive-based intervention, okay, which isn't conceptually systematic with our behavior analytic interventions. How do we respond as the behavior analyst, looking out for the best interest of our client? Do we A, explain to the parents and the psychologist that self-control is a misnomer and that cognitive-based interventions are not observable or measurable? While we may believe this and why this might be part of our behavior analytic training, okay, this would not be the best response. The psychologist is still part of the team. The psychologist is still acting in her best knowledge, right? So she's implementing what she knows, okay? So explaining to her that she is wrong is not the best way to approach it. B, refuse to participate in the intervention. Behavior analysts should only participate in behavior analytic interventions. Okay, this is semi-right, right? Because you only want to act within your behavior analytic scope, okay? But we can participate in interventions and support these interventions using our knowledge, right? So we shouldn't refuse to collaborate and work with another member of the team. We should try to offer our support and help in a behavior analytic way. C, offer to administer the cognitive-based assessment. No, again, this is out of our scope, okay, unless you're somehow trained in this. Most aren't, right? This is not within our scope. So that leaves us with D, design a data collection plan that records the client's baseline food intake and the client's intake after the intervention begins. Yes, this is a great way to support the psychologist, support the intervention, support the client. We're going to collect data on things we can observe and measure, like food intake and not self-control. And then we're going to compare our baseline to the intake after the psychologist's intervention begins. That way we can make data-driven decisions about this cognitive-based intervention, because maybe the intervention is a huge success, which is great. If it's not a success, at least we have data to back that up. 3, a behavior analyst designs an intervention for several members of a group home. The behavior analyst writes the intervention using several acronyms and abbreviations in the plan. The plan is highly effective, but the acronyms tend to confuse the other behavior analysts. What dimension of ABA did the treatment plan violate? All right, remember our 7 dimensions are 7 guiding dimensions of behavior analytic practice. What has this behavior analyst done? They've designed this great intervention. Okay, it's very effective, right? But they've used these acronyms and these abbreviations that no one else understands. Meaning, if this behavior analyst was to quit tomorrow or was to transfer the case, could these other behavior analysts implement this plan like the current one does? Apparently not, because they're confused, right? So what dimension did they violate? Did they violate the applied dimension? Well, applied just means we're looking at the behavior of interest, okay? And that's, nothing indicates that we're not doing that, okay? So we don't know enough about the intervention to say this intervention is not applied. Technological says the intervention should be able to be reproduced and replicated by other people, basically, right? So any intervention you design or write should be able to be implemented by other analysts. This one clearly is not, because it uses the acronyms and abbreviations, which are confusing other analysts. Okay, so we are violating the dimension of technological. Always read all of your answer choices. Okay, so effective, right? Well, within the question, it tells us it's effective, but effective means there's significant change based on our intervention. Okay, so we can see from the question this has happened. And then conceptually systematic means we base our treatment in behavior analytic principles. Okay, there's nothing to suggest that this behavior analyst intervention isn't based in behavior principles. The only thing missing, okay, is the ability to replicate this treatment plan effectively across multiple people. Therefore, we have violated the technological aspect. Susan is crafting a recipe for a dinner party she plans to host. After tasting her final product, she is unhappy with one of the seasonings she put into the dish. Susan remakes the dish multiple times, but each time removes one seasoning in order to determine which one she dislikes. What is Susan attempting? All right, so Susan has this recipe she made, and she mixed, let's say, 5 or 6 different seasonings into the dish. She tries it, doesn't like it because of one of the seasonings. How are we going to determine which seasoning it is? Well, we're just going to have to remove one at a time and see which one makes the taste change. So if we are looking at the big picture, okay, the broad treatment plan recipe, so to speak, and we're removing individual pieces of that recipe, what are we doing? Are we doing a component analysis? Yes, right? A component analysis is removing parts of the intervention to see which one is affecting it, which one is working, which one is not. Susan, by removing individual components, seasoning, for instance, she can determine which one she dislikes. So A looks like our best answer. Read all of your answers. B, parametric analysis. Okay, parametric analysis is we are looking at the dosage, essentially, how much of something. So if Susan identified that pepper was the seasoning that she didn't like, and she wanted to find out how much pepper she needed, then she would do a parametric analysis. So component looks at all the different seasonings. Parametric looks at amount. Multiple probe and withdrawal, okay, are type of single subject designs. We're not implementing any sort of single subject design here, okay? C and D are not applicable to what Susan is doing. Susan is simply doing a component analysis. Which of the following answer choices is not related to stimulus relations? So what are stimulus relations? These are our derived learnings, okay? Matching to sample. we teach A equals A, right? And then we teach A equals B, and then therefore B equals C, A equals C, right? Our whole idea that these derived relations between pictures and words and typed words, okay, all create these samples that match each other, right? Which of the following is not related to that? A, transitivity. Well, transitivity is the idea that if A equals B and B equals C, A equals C, okay? Reflexivity is the idea that A equals A. Symmetry is the idea that A equals B, therefore B equals A. So that leaves us with reactivity. What is reactivity? Reactivity is just the occurrence of a person understanding they're being watched, and so their behavior changes. Doesn't have anything to do with stimulus relations. Okay, so our answer here is reactivity. At the outset of the case, the mother of your client expressed she wanted her child to communicate appropriately and learn how to help themselves. Currently, the child is able to meet their basic needs independently and functionally, and the client is satisfied. At the time, the data indicates there are no other major behavioral concerns. What's the next step for the behavior analyst? What is the question asking, okay? That's where you want to start on the BCBA exam. What is this question really saying? What is it asking? Well, it's saying that we've accomplished our goal, okay? The client is independent, she's meeting needs, okay? We've accomplished all our goals, and there's really nothing else to address. So what do we do next? Okay, what do we do next as behavior analysts when we've accomplished what we set out to do, and there's nothing really else left to tackle? Do we A, attempt to find and address additional behavior issues? We should never go searching for issues, okay? Meaning we want socially significant behaviors that are going to matter, okay? That are going to produce an impact, that are meaningful. Just addressing random behavior issues isn't something we do, okay? So A is out. B, continue strengthening the client's behavior. Well, the client is satisfied, okay? The data indicates everything is fine, right? Staying there just to continue with this behavior, okay? One, doesn't help with maintenance, doesn't help with generalization, and two, seems to be needless, okay? So B is out. C, terminate services immediately. Your work is done. Well, your work might be done, okay, but we never abandon clients. We never just terminate immediately. We give them proper notice, okay? So that leaves us with D, create a plan to fade services at an appropriate pace, all right? Once you've accomplished what you set out to do, and there's nothing else to address, we want to create a transition plan, okay, a discharge plan, where within 30, 60, 90 days, right, we effectively transition away from our services. We never abandon, okay, and we never seek out meaningless behavior just to continue working, okay? Our goal is to work ourselves out of a job, right? Anyway, go in there, accomplish what we set out to do, transition in a timely and appropriate manner, okay, and then get out. 7, Timmy is sitting quietly at his desk. When the teacher says, okay, begin your exam, it takes Timmy 20 seconds to start answering the first question. Timmy takes, on average, 2 minutes to answer each question. And in total, it took Timmy 30 minutes to take his exam. What best represents latency in this example? What is latency? All right. Latency is a very simple measurement term. As a BCBA, you should definitely understand what latency is. It's the time between the SD and the start of a response, right? So is Timmy sitting quietly at his desk part of latency? No, there's no time measurement going on. There's no measurement going on. He's just sitting quietly. Teacher says, okay, begin your exam. It takes Timmy 20 seconds to start answering the first question. Is 20 seconds a good example of latency? Sure. The SD is begin your exam. The time between the SD and Timmy starting to answer the question, 20 seconds. Looks like latency to me. Very good. So B is our answer. Always read all your answer choices. You want the best answer. What does 2 minutes represent? Timmy on average takes 2 minutes to answer each question. So 2 minutes represents the average duration for answering each question, okay? And in total, it took Timmy 30 minutes to take his exam. So total duration of the exam is 30 minutes. Latency, in this example, the best way to describe it would be 20 seconds. ESD of begin your exam, 20 seconds pass. We answer our first question. 8. You've worked in the field of autism for nearly 10 years. Yesterday, you were asked to consult for a client with a severe intellectual disability. If you choose to take the job, what should you do next? So remember, although the majority of behavior analysts work with people with autism, behavior analytics is not just for people with autism, okay? It's for everything. So you've been in the field for 10 years, but now somebody wants you to work with somebody with a severe intellectual disability, okay? This is not your competency, this is not your expertise, right? So what do you need to do next? Do you conduct indirect assessments with the caregivers? If you take the job, you will be doing this, right? But what should you do before you start doing assessments? Okay. B, conduct a functional analysis on major problem behaviors. If you're not doing indirect assessments yet, you definitely won't be doing functional analysis, right? What do you still need to do? C, consult a BCBA or specialist who is well-trained in intellectual disabilities. Absolutely. What is our task list item, right? Receive appropriate supervision, practice within our scope. If you're going to take the job, you need to be trained, you need to be supervised, okay? You should not just say, oh yeah, I can handle it if you've never worked with intellectual disabilities before. D, reject the case. You should not consult disabilities outside of autism. That's of course not true, right? We can consult on all kinds of things, but it must be within our competency. If we are not competent in that area, we need to receive training or we need to deny services. An adult group home participates in a group contingency that rewards them with their favorite beer at the end of the week if they complete all necessary tasks. Using alcohol as a reinforcer could lead to unwanted outcomes. Which of the following is not an example of an unwanted outcome? Okay, so we are rewarding these group home participants, these adults, which we assume are legally able to drink, okay, with alcohol. Which of the following answer choices is not an unwanted outcome? Meaning, okay, what is one positive that could come from the situation? Okay. A, alcohol can lead to health and addiction problems. Well, this would be an unwanted outcome. Obviously, we don't want our clients to have health and addiction problems. Okay, so A is out. B, the desired behaviors increase. Sure, if we're using alcohol as a reinforcer, then we want a behavior to increase. That is not an unwanted outcome, right? We want that to happen. Okay, so B looks good. C, clients may be able to receive bootleg reinforcement from other sources. Absolutely right. Alcohol is pretty easy to obtain for adults. Okay, clients can easily get out alcohol elsewhere, especially if they're allowed to leave the home. Okay, so bootleg reinforcement is a high possibility. And then D, the reinforcer might increase undesired behaviors if it isn't presented immediately following the desired behavior. Meaning, if this group contingency is working, but you're delivering reinforcement at random times, okay, at the end of the week, you might be increasing undesired behaviors instead of the actual behavior you want to see. So the only example of a wanted outcome is the desired behaviors increasing. Finally, 10, if you want to identify a specific time during the school day that a target behavior occurs most frequently, what would be the best graph to use? So we are looking for a relation between time of day and the target behavior occurring, okay? Are these two things related? Do they have a relationship? If we want to identify this, what graph do we want to use? Okay, do we want to use a line graph? Well, with the line graph, okay, we would have our data, right? We'd be plotting our data on this line graph, okay, and creating these set data points. We're looking for a relation between, say, 9 a.m. and the behavior, 10 a.m. and the behavior, 11 a.m. and the behavior. Once we have all our data, maybe then we can graph it, okay? But if we want to just look at the relationship initially, okay, what should we try to use? What about a cumulative record? Okay, well, a cumulative record is going to just keep going up, increase, okay? That's not going to tell us anything about what time of day this behavior is occurring, okay? What about a standard acceleration chart? Well, standard acceleration chart is for what? Precision teaching and fluency. Again, not what we're looking for. That leaves us with D, our scatter plot, okay? Our scatter plot is going to have two variables, and we're going to find and we're going to see if there's a relationship, right? So if I have 9 a.m., okay, on one axis, and then the behavior, okay, and we're marking off the behavior as it occurs, okay, at 9 a.m., I can start to see when my behaviors are occurring most frequently, okay? And I'm going to get a real good indication as that scatter plot shows me, okay, the time of day that these behaviors are occurring. So the best graph to use in this situation would be a scatter plot. Okay, hope you enjoyed. Hope that was helpful. Like I said, every Friday, we're going to come back, continue our exam, okay? Continue going question by question. So keep working hard, keep studying hard. Any questions, let me know, and I will see you soon.